So it's over. The fight for five is done. Hamilton is your 2018 World Champion. Welcome back to Race Review, the shorter version than normal. Obviously, everyone knows the outcome of this race. Hamilton is World Champion. Max Verstappen gets his second win of the 2018 season. We're going to go through a few little details here and there of the race. Wasn't the best race of the year, and actually last time out, when I reviewed the USA Grand Prix, straight off the bat, I did my score out of 10 and my driver of the day, and I quite like that little mix-up. So what I'm going to do for these final few races of this season, especially now we know who's champion, I'm going to mix up the format a little bit, just to test it out, so then hopefully next season we can get the best format possible going forward. So I quite like I say, I quite like what I did last time out, where I mentioned what I thought of the race, my driver of the day, and then we sort of go backwards in time. So, like I say, let's crack on with it. Wasn't the best race of all time. Yes, there were some great results and great stories up and down the grid, but the race itself wasn't the best. And the Mexico circuit, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, my pronunciation I feel is okay, but the race itself isn't one of my favourites, and I don't think gives the best spectacle, especially for casual fans that may have come over just to watch this race, I suppose just to see Hamilton become champion. Wasn't the most exciting of races, and I think this circuit does lack that sort of racing edge, especially during that second sector where overtaking, well, even the third sector, overtaking just doesn't happen. And I think especially the last couple of years where these cars do struggle to overtake, it's a real difficult sort of circuit for those guys. But I digress. 7 out of 10 is what I'm going to give this race. It sounds like I'm actually being a bit more positive giving it a 7 out of 10, but when I look back at some of the other scores I've given races, this is definitely better than the likes of Australia, Canada, races that I believe I gave a 5 out of 10 for both of those. So it was a considerable amount better than those two races. So a 7 out of 10, that's a solid score for the race. And I'm not going to lie that we still saw some great overtakes, and there was still drama, especially within that top six with the two Red Bulls up there. It was a solid race, but not the thriller that I imagine a lot of people would have wanted in a championship decider. A little bit like the USA was a couple of weekends ago, which I gave a 10 out of 10. I absolutely loved that race, and even a week on, that is still by far my favourite race of the season. And before that, I think I would have said Bahrain. I really enjoyed Bahrain and Azerbaijan. Those were cracking races. I gave 9 out of 10. And China, those were cracking races. But the USA Grand Prix had that little edge for me. But we're not here to talk about those. We're here to talk about Mexico. 7 out of 10 for the race. Max Verstappen, your race winner. Sebastian Vettel came home in second with Kimi Raikkonen in third. Hamilton fourth with Bottas fifth. A difficult day for the Mercedes, both having to do extra stops just because of tyre wear. Raikkonen managed to do one stop compared to the Mercedes' 3 stops. Very, very difficult situation for those guys. Hamilton got away with the 2, but Bottas had to do a 3. It was a very, very scruffy race for the team, and if I'm being totally honest with you, probably their worst performance of the year. And I don't mean that from a team point of view, but from a car point of view, really didn't suit this circuit. But still a 4th and 5th is okay. It's okay. They've lost points in the Constructors to Ferrari. That still looks like it's going to be a really close fight. But I'd still expect Mercedes to wrap that up in a few weekends' time. But we'll still have to wait and see for that one. Hulkenberg in P6 for Renault. Renault really looking strong this weekend. And at one point, looked like they might be a little bit closer to the top 3 teams. But not quite in the end. Sainz DNF'd, who was running in 6th. But like I say, DNF'd about halfway through the race, promoting Hulkenberg into P6. Leclerc, P7, with Ericsson P9, means Sauber now jumps Toro Rosso in the Constructors, which is a very, very solid job from those two once again. And Stoffel Van Dorn in the points. First point since Azerbaijan, the man that I defended for so much at the beginning of the year. Halfway through the year I'd had enough of, and I thought, you know what, Stoffel, you've really let yourself down here this season. It's not been great, we've all got to admit that, but a really cracking job today, and he's in my top 3 for drivers of the day. So Van Dorn, a very good job there from Stoffel, and you know what, if he can get a bit of momentum in these final few races, when he leaves McLaren, he can have a really strong start to Formula E in December. So he's going to be a one to watch in Formula E, and hoping for him for McLaren, he's final few races he can put in a bit of a solid job just to make his record look a little bit nicer than it currently is at the moment, but still hasn't out-qualified Alonso this year, so that's something that's still a bit of a stain on the record. Ericsson 9th, like I mentioned. Gasly, final point scorer in 10th, coming from 20th and last on the grid. Another solid drive from Pierre Gasly and his teammate Brendan Hartley down in 14th. A difficult drive for him. Guys just outside the points, Ocon, a really difficult day for Esteban Ocon. Stroll, Sorokin, Hartley, Magnussen and Grosjean, the final two finishers. Haas having a diabolical weekend behind both Williams. Very, very difficult. Non-finishers, Alonso and Sainz, both Spaniard. Force India, Sergio Perez at his home Grand Prix. A really difficult weekend for Sergio Perez and Daniel Ricciardo. Right, let's just go through some stories. I could already tell this is a little bit strange, this format of doing it, so I'd love to know your thoughts of this sort of laid-back, sort of chilled approach, if you preferred it in a more structured way. But we're just trialing for the moment, so if you can bear with me, hopefully this all makes a little bit more sense. But we'll go through the little sort of key stories throughout this race then. So Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo, the resurgent Red Bulls. Now, we always knew that coming to this weekend, Red Bull would be really strong. The high altitude of this circuit, matched with their power engine and, well, setup of the car, always looked like it would be their circuit. And last year it proved to be, and this year it proved to be, once again, with Ricciardo taking his first pole position, not at Monaco. A really fantastic job from Daniel, considering all weekend he looked second fiddle to Max Verstappen. Come Sunday, that changed. Lap 1, Verstappen and Hamilton bossed the start, Ricciardo falling down the order. Ricciardo then gets back into P2. And once again, his car fails on him. And everyone's heart breaks for the Aussie. He's come out after the race and said he doesn't care anymore. He doesn't care if Gasly does the final two races. His car is cursed. He doesn't want to be a part of that. And you know what? I don't blame him. I really don't blame him. It's such a difficult position for Daniel Ricciardo because he's got 2 more races now that he can try and get a win, a podium. But he hasn't had a podium since Monaco, and really it's not been his fault. His car just keeps breaking down, and if it's not in the race, it's in qualifying. And we've now done 19 races, and he's had 8 DNFs. And like I say, that doesn't even include the races like Suzuka, where his car broke down in qualifying. It's been an awful year for Daniel Ricciardo, and you can really see now why he wants to move out of that team. Words cannot describe what this man is going through. That was one of the biggest stories this weekend. Vettel as well. Vettel was the second man who was in my top 3 for driver of the day. A really solid drive from Sebastian Vettel, I think. This year he's been prone to mistakes, is a huge understatement, isn't it? Huge understatement saying that. Kept his nose clean this weekend, raced hard, raced fair, and I was really impressed with Sebastian today. Under the immense pressure, he kept his head, he kept his cool. Unfortunately, the pace of the Red Bulls was too much for anyone on the grid today, so second for Vettel, wasn't able to hold on to that championship. Further down the grid, Charles Leclerc and Ericsson, another great story there. Quickly mentioned it earlier. Overtaking Toro Rosso in the Constructors. And with Van Dorn scoring 4 points and Force India scoring a big fat 0, McLaren might hold on to 6th into the Constructors. Which is an incredible feat considering how Force India have been smashing it out the park since Belgium. And McLaren have been nowhere, going out in Q1 most days. So Van Dorn doing a fantastic job there, but the big story, this man on screen, Hamilton, a 5-time world champion, and I'm sure many people on the platform will say this, but I know I grew up with Lewis Hamilton. I remember his first season. I remember my dad saying, this guy, watch this guy. Everyone said it, to be fair, but to see him now 5-time world champion is a bit crazy. It really is a bit crazy, a bit surreal. And Hamilton's emotions yesterday, I think, summed up a lot of the fan base that were there when he came into Formula 1. This is an incredible story, incredible journey he's been on. I'm going to do a separate video about this title, but wow, what a year it's been for Lewis Hamilton. But he had a difficult day, and the real star of the day, my driver of the day, my number one man, the man on screen, Max Verstappen. Another incredible drive from a guy that really is going higher and higher in my book on drivers on the grid. This guy is a superstar. I am 100% sure now he will be a world champion at some point. He is incredible. What a race from Max Verstappen. Did the job on lap 1, getting into first place. Was able to control the pace, control his tyres. Fantastic drive from the Dutchman for a second win of the year. One less than his teammate still, one less than Daniel Ricciardo. So he'll still want to correct that a little bit, but his qualifying comparison has been incredible against his teammate. And since probably Canada, he's been almost unstoppable in that car. And Max Verstappen, clearly my driver of the day. 7 out of 10 for the Mexican Grand Prix. But as always, I'd love to know what you think, guys. Hamilton, was he a worthy winner of this championship? I think most people would agree. But if not, I want to know why. Who is your driver of the day? Is it Verstappen? And what would you rate the race out of 10? Guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.